And welcome to a brand new week of Capital Talk, a program we hope will have an impact on the future of Kenya. Now more than ever, I'm Jeff Kinenge. Now, new week means a new theme. And I tell you folks, there's one picture that speaks 1,000 words that was in this morning's Star newspaper. And also, last night in the news, you saw the picture. Former President Daniel Arap Moi attending church service with the Prime Minister. So the theme that we're asking is, reformist or non-reformist? Who is fooling whom? Who is the reformer in this case? And the Prime Minister keeps saying he is the reformer, but he's seen in church. And then there's rumors about an alliance between him and the former president. People, somebody has to say something. You can bash us, you can criticize us, but we're going to keep talking. And on the bench today is a man who fears nothing. He calls it like he sees it. In fact, for a man who was so close to the Prime Minister at one point, you just have to wonder, is he a gun for hire? He doesn't care about the titles that people throw at him. He says he'll continue to call it each and every time because he knows his history, he knows his politics, and he's all about Kenya first, everything else seconds. Two initials, folks, TG, as in Tony Gashoka.
Hi there, Jeff. How are you?
Brother.
How are you doing?
Good to see you.
And good to see you.
How are things?
100%.
I'm telling you, Tony, you cannot make some of this stuff up that we see in the news. Yes. And when you see former President Daniel Arap Moi attending church service with Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and they're there chatting, laughing, everything, and the speculations come out. You saw the Star today saying there could be a new alliance. I mean, come on. What is this, Tony?
There's just one thing I want to correct before we go on. I mean, you keep saying every time I'm on the bench that this man worked with Raila. But you must remember, I worked there for 1 year and I took off because what I saw internally was disaster. Well, I looked around, I saw maize, I saw Triton, I saw Devani, I saw many things, and I got out. Yeah. And I said to people, watch out, there's something here which is very wrong. And the reason that some of us at that time thought you could support Raila was because you thought that this nation needs a healing, a certain sense of getting above the tribal and the normal ethnic politics. And Raila had positioned himself as a person who could actually guide the country towards unity and diversity.
So he sold you?
He actually not only just William Ruto, Musalia Mudavadi, he worked with Uhuru Kenyatta in the 2005. They worked against the constitution and defeated Mwai Kibaki in the first referendum. So I don't know who hasn't worked with Raila Odinga, but the problem is working with him scares you. Working with him makes you become a meguna, Yeah. You want to peel back the face. I don't know what you want to call it. But let me talk about the Moi incident, because the Moi incident is really perhaps a picture that speaks 1,000 words. The history between Jaramogi, the father of Raila, and Moi was what is actually the beginning of the rivalries between the Odingas and the Mois. When Kenyatta became president, a lot of the people from Nyanza claim that Raila's father said, until no Uhuru without Kenyatta. So Kenyatta was released, had his first vice president Murumbi, and after that he had Jaramogi. They worked for a very short period of time before Odinga's father, Jaramogi, pulled out. And we headed for the little general election of 1967. And that's when KPU was formed. And for 50 years, the Luo nation was removed from government because they were never part of government because of that fallout of Kenyatta, even throughout the Moi years, until the time when Raila's father first met Moi. And he met Moi and said Moi could see as far as a giraffe. Mm-hmm. And many, many months later, his son then met Moi in the so-called famous merger. And that merger is a very interesting merger because that is the time when Raila became a minister, when the so-called problems of these molasses in Kisumu was solved mysteriously, and all of a sudden you come back to 1982.
But even before that, the Afrigas, the gas cylinder company.
Correct.
They had a monopoly on that. Somehow no one else could import gas.
Absolutely. And also remember that Moi had detained Odinga.
The same man.
The same Moi detained him and charged him with sedition. And Raila was charged before a court of law. The thing that happened was when that charge was ongoing, it was killed in the courts. Nobody ever knows what happened. So we can never ever actually investigate properly the issue of the coup d'etat, because it will be double jeopardy. But the relationship between Moi and Odinga has been one of major convenience or inconvenience. They have been partners when it has suited them, and they have been enemies when it has not. And therefore, even the call for reforms, if you remember very clearly, has never been a call for reforms. It was a call of removing Moi. No reforms, no elections, and so forth. So a lot of people at that time who are reformers, Mutava Musimi, you should hear some of the things he's now saying in parliament. Some of the people who are the top reformists, Getobu Imanyara and others, are now with Raila. Raila is with Moi. So you cannot come and tell me that the reform agenda that was fought for in the 90s belongs to Raila Odinga or belongs to the people that Raila says it belongs to. Now, Jeff, I want to give you an example. My daughter Patricia, she's 21. She wasn't born in 1991. She was a baby, maybe 1 year old. Is she a non-reformer? I mean, what happens to the Uhuru generation? Yes. What happens to 70% of the Kenyan people who are born after that time? They don't matter? They can't run for elective office? They're not good enough to hold office? I mean, they cannot transform this country because they are not old enough? Because they were not there? So how do you judge?
They're excluded.
They're excluded because you say so? People are not excluded because you say so. They are excluded because they are defeated in elections. But these two people, Moi and Raila, know each other extremely well. So it is no accident that they meet together because they both like playing political games. Raila said after the death of the late Saitoti that, oh my God, do you really know I was supporting Saitoti for president? Well, hello?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden...
And nobody else knew this, by the way.
Nobody knew. He said, well, how do you know it's true or not? He says after dear George is gone. Yeah. Now, Raila then appears at the Kabarak. And Raila comes and sits there and is laughing around. And remember, Moi was the chief guest at his son's wedding here at Windsor.
Correct.
Junior. Yeah. So the relationship between Moi and Raila is an ongoing relationship seeking power to protect each other. And if you remember when when Raila was evicting the Mau Forest, he evicted the common Kalenjin man.
And he left 10,000 acres.
He didn't touch Moi.
He didn't touch that tea farm.
No, did he? Did he?
It's still there.
And so you're surprised they're laughing together in a church? This is an issue of two people who are the same. But big man syndrome did not begin with Moi. Moi learned it from Mobutu Sese Seko.
Kukubendu was a banga.
And people like Bokassa.
Jean Bidel Bokassa.
He used to be carried with a gold...
on a throne.
On a throne. And this African continent has had big men. There was Doe.
Samuel Doe in Liberia.
There was this Idi Amin who used to marry anybody's wife that he wished to until he was thrown out of Uganda. And let me tell you this, Moi grew up from the time when the big man syndrome